to welcome you all to this celebration of our Filipino-American History Month. My name is Yolanda Yoli Moy, and I am the Region Chair of the Philippine-American Chamber of Commerce, Central Texas Region, based here in San Antonio. Just a little backgrounder of PACC Texas. Our main chapter is in Dallas, and we just celebrated our 10th anniversary last October 2019. It is strategically located in 4 regions: Dallas-Fort Worth, Greater Houston, Rio Grande Valley, and of course us here in San Antonio, and the neighboring cities including Austin. PACC Texas main
Yoli, you're on mute.
There you go. We are so excited to have you all here tonight. This event is a getting to know you better platform with our community leaders and business owners. At this juncture, I would like to present to you Ms. Dominique Liu, our moderator for tonight. Dominique?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight to celebrate our Filipino-American History Month. As our president has mentioned, my name is Dominique Liu, and I'm a proud member of this fine organization, the PACC CTR. As our region chair mentioned, we are a Filipino-American Chamber of Commerce here in the great city of San Antonio. And as a business owner myself, I have been humbled by the openness, hospitality, and generosity that this chamber has shown me and my family in the years that I've been a member since. And so tonight, for the month of October, we commemorate the history of Filipino Americans and their many contributions to the economic and social diversity of our great country. As all of you are well aware, our nation and the world has seen some unprecedented changes this past year. Many lives were lost and changed permanently due to the coronavirus pandemic. Tonight, as a community, we show our solidarity and ability to not only adapt to our current circumstances, but evolve into the community that comes together in times of crisis, evolve into the community that encourages each other's growth and differences, and evolve into the community that is not torn apart by our political affiliations. Tonight, we come together as one community. And so without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and turn it back to our region chair, Ms. Yolanda Moy, who will introduce our distinguished guests. Please stay tuned as we will have an opportunity to network amongst each other following our guest speakers.
Thank you so much, Dominique. Thank you very much. Before I introduce our first guest, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Honorary Consul Ethel Mercado from our PACC Texas. Hi, Ms. Ethel. She is the President Emeritus of PACC Texas. Also, we have her, Gas Mercado, who is the Executive Director. And also, we would like to recognize Tomas Buddy Gomez, who just... Hi, Gas, how are you?
Hi.
And then we have...
The sheriff just joined us too, Yoli.
Okay. And we have Tomas Buddy Gomez too. Okay. I'll introduce first Miss Gina Ortiz. Hi, Sheriff, you're in. Welcome, Sheriff Javier.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you. We'll start with our first guest who came in first. We have Gina Ortiz, who is a first-generation Filipino-American, raised by a single mother who came to the United States because she believed in the promise of a better future. After graduating from Boston University on a 4-year ROTC scholarship, Gina was commissioned as an intelligence officer in the United States Air Force and was deployed to Iraq. Gina returned home to San Antonio following her deployment to help care for her mother who was fighting cancer. Over nearly 15 years, Gina has built a career in national security with a focus on defense intelligence and economic security. Gina knows that we need a leader standing up for the issues that can make a real impact on people's lives. That is why she's stepping up to serve the country and our community by running for Texas' 23rd Congressional District. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Gina Ortiz Jones.
Great. Well, good evening and happy Filipino-American History Month. It's a pleasure to be with you. I wish we were doing this in person, but of course, you know, given what we're all living through, this pandemic, we're all doing our part to make sure we can safely open up our economy, right? I just spent the day, actually, this is a massive district. It goes from San Antonio all the way to El Paso. And it also includes 800 miles of the US-Mexico border. And I just spent the day, literally just got back to the house. We were in Del Rio and Eagle Pass. We did a ride-in for Biden. Folks are very excited, and we caravanned, right, all throughout those two towns. And folks are very excited about voting and getting our country back on the right track. And this is one of the top races in the entire country. And I'm very honored that we are considered the seat most likely to flip in the entire country. And in early voting starting in just a couple of days, we are focused on making sure that we have the highest turnout possible. And this is a district, again, that is 29 counties, 18 counties have 3 or less doctors, 3 counties have no doctors. So it really is one of the most underserved parts of the state, and a state where we've got the most uninsured folks in the country. I say all that because, though this is a time to celebrate, I think it's also a time to just also think about the unique sacrifices and the service of, in particular, Filipino-American nurses. Filipino-American nurses make up only 4% of all nurses, yet they've represented 30% of COVID-19 related deaths. And, as we think about our history, I think it's so important that we make sure that we are participating in a country that is as much ours as it is anyone else's, right? And that includes a couple of things. One, please participate in the census, which ends at the end of this month, right? Make sure that you and your family are counted so our communities can have the resources that we need for our small businesses, our healthcare resources, et cetera, but also make sure you vote, right? I'll make sure you vote in just a couple of days and make sure that, we are electing people that are going to reflect our values, certainly when it comes to an immigration policy, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to those that are going to, work to protect our lives and our livelihoods, and just make sure that our country is living up to our values. So I know I'm supposed to keep my comments short. I'm very much appreciative. As I was looking through the tiles, I see many folks that have been very generous with my campaign. And I want to thank you because, again, when I ran in 2018, I came up just short, 926 votes. So I know every vote counts. And there's still an opportunity to help if you would like. We're not knocking on doors just in the interest of people's health, but we are phone banking and text banking, and it's so critical that we're reaching out to as many folks as possible. So they have a plan to vote, they have a plan to vote early, and they have a plan to vote safely, and they have a plan to vote down the entire ballot. So I will put that in the chat if somebody from my team can do that. And we've got a couple of events between now and the 3rd, and even an hour, 2 hours, making phone calls, all of it makes the difference. So thank you so much for considering that. If you'd also like to support, if you're in San Antonio, then you're seeing our commercials and you're getting our digital ads and you're hearing radio and you're also getting our mail. And it's unfortunately not a cheap endeavor to run for office. So if you also like to support my campaign, you can make a donation at the link that has also been put in the chat box. So look, I look forward to being the first Filipino-American member of Congress ever, right? Ever. It is more important that I am not the last, and it is most important that our community is well represented. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful Zoom celebration, and I will see you soon. Take care.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gina. Oh, by the way, just to let you know, the Philippine-American Chamber of Commerce is a 501c6 nonprofit organization, so we are not in a position to endorse any political candidate. However, we are encouraging everyone, of course, as Ms. Jones said, to exercise their right to vote on November 3rd, 2020. Thank you so much, Ms. Gina. Thank you. And next, we have our sheriff. He's here already. Thank you for waiting, Sheriff Javier.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Javier Salazar has been serving as our Bexar County Sheriff since January of 2017. He is running for re-election this year. He is a guiding voice among law enforcement leaders who are looking for creative ways to partner and work with the culturally diverse communities. I am proud to tell you all that he is an honorary member of PACC CTR. Thank you so much, Sheriff. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Sheriff Javier Salazar.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to come on. Of course, you know, I don't mind waiting for Ms. Gina Ortiz Jones. She's a strong leader in our community. She's going to do great things once we all help her flip that seat. And she has my full endorsement and support in anything that she might need. And I'm blessed we're blessed to have a leader like her in this community. So with regard to my Filipino community, happy Filipino-American Heritage Month. You know, when I married Sarah, 20 years ago, November 4th, the day after hopefully my re-election, will be our 20th wedding anniversary. And, you know, when I married Sarah, I'm proud to say I didn't just marry into a Filipino family, I married into the Filipino community. You all have been so warm and welcoming and supportive of everything that I do within the sheriff's office. And of course, we're raising our two daughters. Brooke is 25, she'll be 26 soon, and Isabella is 18. She'll be 19 soon. Next week, this coming week, as a matter of fact. And we have raised both of those young ladies to be proud of not just their Mexican-American heritage, but also, of course, their Filipino-American heritage. They've got ancestors that literally stormed the beach at Normandy. They've got ancestors that fought in the jungles of Vietnam. And of course, they have ancestors that were Filipino scouts as well. And so they are raised to be proud of you know, where they come from in order to know where we're going in life. And so, you know, we definitely owe that all to their Filipino heritage. You know, when I married Sarah, it was such an honor. I didn't understand very much about the Filipino community. I grew up, of course, obviously in the Mexican-American community, where we're all about family and food and fun and dancing and music. And when I married Sarah, I was ecstatic to learn that she came from a culture that valued all of those same things, equally and even more so in some instances. I think y'all's culture loves karaoke a little bit more than the Mexican-American community, but we do. It's always such a good time, and I can always count on my Filipino family members, you all, to be at all of our events and supporting everything that we do. And so I just so appreciate the warm welcome you all have given me over the course of the last 20 years. And I look forward to continuing that beautiful relationship with you all. And so, yes, as Gina mentioned, we have a big election coming up. I'm also on the ballot, just as Gina is. And I would just encourage everybody that, look, whether you come out and you vote for me or for Gina or whoever, just come out and participate in the process, please. I can assure you that, having seen the preparations that are being done by our Bexar County Elections Office, Ms. Jackie Callanan does a fantastic job. It's safe, it's secure. Come on out, just bring your mask, bring your hand sanitizer, bring a book or a magazine, because you're going to be in line for a little while, because we're blessed in that this is going to be a very busy election time, but understandably so. There's so much at stake, and I would just encourage everybody to come out and participate in the process to make sure that we do get good leaders like Ms. Gina Ortiz Jones into office, and that we hang on to some of the folks that have been blessed to be elected officials for years and years and years. So with that being said, thank you all so much. Please enjoy your event, your online event, but also again, enjoy the rest of Filipino-American Heritage Month. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sheriff Javier. We really appreciate your coming over, stopping by today. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now I hand over to Dominique, who will, we're waiting for the mayor actually. He'll be here around 6:30.
Okay.
So for the meantime, Dominique, I'll hand the floor to you, please.
Sure. Okay. So as we wait for our mayor to log on, we're going to go ahead and do what we call breakout rooms. And I'm not sure if some of you are familiar with that, but you're going to be put in a room with certain, I guess just a random group of people, and you're going to have an opportunity to talk about yourself, your family, your professional background, and if you have a business, please talk about that, because we are a chamber of commerce, and that is what we do. We network and we help each other's business out. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and open the breakout rooms here. And here we go. All right. Who do we have here? We have Consul Ethel and Ms. Sybil. Let me unmute you. Hello. Hi, Ms. Sybil. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good.
Eating dinner while I'm on the Zoom. I didn't know.
That's all right. You can multitask.
Yes, I'm good at that.
Have we met before, Ms. Sybil? I feel like we've met before.
I'm with FON's Houston, Texas chapter, the Filipino-American National Historical Society. I'm the vice president for 2020-2022.
Wow.
So I live in Houston.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually grew up in Houston. We just moved here from San Antonio about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I grew up there. I was born in the Philippines, and then we moved to Texas, and so I grew up most of my life in Houston. I'm familiar with, the way
What
the
part?
city is.
North side, south side?
So I went to high school, and when did I go? I went to high school in the A-Leaf area.
Oh, A-Leaf in the house.
Yeah. So, Joe. All right. So Joe just joined. He's a member of our PACC chamber. Can you unmute, Joe?
Yep, there I am.
Oh, there you are. Awesome. So we're just getting to know each other, and Miss Sybil is part of, correct me if I'm wrong, it's FONS, the Filipino, you might want to go ahead and
Filipino-American National Historical Society. We're the Houston, Texas chapter. We're the only chapter in Texas so far, but we're trying to get people to build one in Dallas and maybe San Antonio.
Oh, that would be great. Do you know Anthony Guevara?
Of course, everybody knows Anthony.
Yeah, everybody knows Anthony. Yes, yes. So I actually, we got to know each other through friends and through PACC as well. So I think he had mentioned your organization at one point.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here. We're here celebrating Filipino-American History Month. No one corrected the sheriff, but that's okay.
The heritage part is very important. Heritage versus history.
That's right. So it's actually History Month, not Heritage, since
when was Heritage? Was that in June or the Heritage?
That's what I'm hearing, but it's Filipino heritage, not Filipino-American heritage.
Oh, I see. Just
that's the
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, because I think that was I read an article online about the difference between, I'm not sure if it was you or Anthony that posted it, about the difference between heritage and history. Because
that was it.
Yeah, the history part includes of course the economic and the politics and all of that involved. So, exactly. Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Where do I begin? No, it's it's great. It's a great call that has been put together here, Dominic and Yoli and team. And I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, back in 1981, and I've been down here now for almost 14 years. Basically came with a suitcase and a signing bonus, and so the majority of my family live up in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I was, the one to leave the nest. Just kind of was my prayer growing up, just to get out to a new area and start a new family. And it couldn't be a better place than San Antonio. I mean, you talk about the fact that it's just so family oriented, here, and that's really in line with the Filipino culture as well too. So, fortunately, I met my wife in about 6 years ago. We met in person about 5 years ago in Manila, and she lives in Yaibang, which is in the Visayas. And we just bought our first house last year, so we're really proud about that. She works her butt off at Amazon. Through all of COVID, you can imagine Amazon, they don't take a break for anything, right? So I'm very impressed with her and her work ethic. She's just incredible. So anyways, that's about me. And I work in the chemical business. So it's been a very busy year with COVID.
Oh yeah. Tell us a little bit about the changes that you've seen in the past couple of months as far as the sanitizing, because I know you're in that sector.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So in the 13 plus years that I've been down here, I like to compare it to the H1N1 and the swine flu back in the day. So, I work with a lot of school districts, and it's the procuring part of it and way they look at disinfecting is really radically changed for the better for us. I mean, I've been consulting on this for years. So I've always been talking about just to be very aware of the disinfectants that you're using. Cause a lot of people, they don't really look at the contact time of the disinfectants. So a lot of customers have been using disinfectants that are 10 minutes long, and it's not really, you need a dwell time of 10 minutes, and you're just not getting it with the majority of disinfectants that are out there, right? So, and it would always be bought on price too. And a lot of the taxpayers in the districts, they didn't really think of the cleaning part of it as important as it really should have been. So this has been a blessing in an odd disguise, right? I mean, I'm not, I don't mean that this tragedy is to be in light in any way, but it's really opened up a lot of people's mind for the importance of, and not only the cleaning itself, but also the custodians' work and the janitors' work, because I've always been a big proponent for them, and just how critical their work is. So the awareness part of it, unfortunately, it had to come to this, but I knew it was going to at a point. We've never taken cleaning and disinfecting as serious as it should be, and here we are. So there's been a lot of that, a lot of Zoom calls. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, anyways.
Well, we appreciate everything that you do, because you're like a frontliner for us, and it's a lot so that you're going through. But we're gonna go ahead and end our breakout room here. Do you see the notification? The Mayor Ron Nirenberg just joined us, so we are gonna be in about 35 seconds. Didn't mean to cut you off there, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, please. Yeah, my wife does it all the time.
All right, here we go. 20 seconds.
Dominique, can you let the mayor in? He's in the waiting room.
Yes, ma'am. He is in 12 seconds.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Ron.
Hi, Mayor Ron. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are y'all?
Very good. We're glad to have you here, Mayor Ron. We're so happy to see you here.
We're glad to see you too.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Carrie.
The birthday boy. And also Kinwi was yesterday's birthday too. Kin is
okay.
here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Ken.
Good to see you.
Hi, Mayor Ron. Great to
Hi,
see
Mayor.
you.
Nice to see you.
Hi.
You too.
Good to see
Yeah.
you.
One day we'll be in the same room.
Yes.
Hi, Joey.
Yeah. So everybody's back into the main room?
Yes, ma'am. Everybody is back.
Okay, very good.
Hey,
Thank
Dave.
you so much, Mayor, for
Bye.
coming in.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and.
Okay.
Oh. All right.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, our next guest is our very own Mayor Ron Nirenberg. He is our beloved mayor of the city of San Antonio, one of the largest growing cities with the 7th largest population in the United States. Our mayor is the son of an immigrant from Southeast Asia and the grandson of immigrants from Eastern Europe who passed through Ellis Island. Through these personal experiences, Mayor Nirenberg developed a core commitment to civic participation and the universal values of liberty, justice, and equal opportunity for every person. Mayor Nirenberg was reelected to a second term on June 8, 2019. I'm proud to say that he is an honorary member of PACC CTR. Ladies and gentlemen, our beloved Mayor, Honorable Mayor Ron Nirenberg.
Good evening, everyone. It's so great to see you. Even if you're all in 2 dimensions right now, I've missed you all. I can't wait till we can have these things in person again. Thank you, Dominique and Yoli and everyone for the invitation. It's wonderful to join you in a really, really important time of year too. I think you would all agree. This year hasn't been anything like we imagined it, for sure. But I think there's good things that are going to come as a result of it. I know all of you are working very hard in your respective fields to ensure that we get a good turnout in the election on November 3rd. That's most critical than anything. We're also closing out our push to get an accurate count for the census, and I want to thank the chamber also for your work on that. I got word, and I think Angelica knows this already, that we crossed the 90 percentile last month, which was one of the biggest turnarounds of any city in the country based on where we were. I think it was top 4 in the country. So congratulations. That was a wonderful effort. We're not done because the courts have extended the complete count process until the end of October. So it's going to be a fight to the very end. And I think you can agree we need our fair share here in the city of San Antonio, not just in terms of resources, but also representation. I'm not sure when I found out, but I found out recently that I'm the only Asian American mayor of a top 50 city. So I'm going to start saying that more often. I had no idea. It's kind of surprising, but thank you for allowing me to represent you all. It's a great honor. I also want to let you know I joined a group of AAPI leaders in the country to help support, potentially support our next president, Joe Biden, in his pursuit of making sure that we have proper Asian American representation in the next administration. So I'll be working with some leaders in different parts of the country to make sure we identify a good representative administration for the country that includes API, Black, Hispanic Americans throughout the administration, all different administrative posts. But you all know the work that I'm doing right now really is critical at the bottom of the ballot. It's not so much every single ballot position is important, but I want to speak a minute on the very bottom of the ballot. We're trying to make sure that people complete their entire ballot this year, which is a very, very long one, from president to Senate to Congress to state representatives. All the way down at the bottom of the ballot are 3 propositions, actually probably 4 or 5, depending on what school district you live in. But I want to speak specifically on Proposition B, which is essay ready to work. This is a proposition that will not raise our taxes. It's not an increase in taxes either. What it's going to do is take a portion of the sales tax that is going to expire next year and help us continue our efforts to get people trained for jobs that are available today. You may know that about 150,000 San Antonio residents, workers, adult workers have been displaced without a job. Many of them have found themselves lining up for food at the food bank line. These were previously employed people in our community that are now on the brink of economic devastation in a city that, mind you, also struggles with poverty. So what we're going to do is provide a track for people to get onto get certifications, professional certifications, or 2 or 4 year degrees, depending on how much education they come into the program with, aligned with high demand targeted industries, so that they're able to finish their job training and get right into a job that's waiting for them here in San Antonio that has been unfilled because we don't have credentialed workers in those industries. I know the chambers have been very, very active in putting the word out, and I want to thank you for that. You know, if this chamber would endorse Proposition B, we will put it all over the place and make sure that people know about it. It would be my honor to have that endorsement from you. But most importantly, I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to answer any questions that you have, but also that we get the word out. We need to get our neighbors, our city back on its feet. And part of that is to make sure people have access to training to get jobs that are here in our community waiting for them to be filled by San Antonio residents, so that businesses can grow and people can thrive. So thank you very much for all that you're doing in our community. Thank you for leading our businesses. Thank you for leading our civic efforts. Ken, I want to thank you especially for being courageous throughout this pandemic and giving us guidance on policymaking. You know I will always have your back, this entire chamber. So call on me anytime that you need me. And I'm honored to be with you during happy hour, even if it's on a screen. We'll be back together very soon. Thank you all. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you so much. That was an inspiring talk. Dominique.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I just want to thank everybody real quick for joining our Meet Your Community Member breakout sessions. I hope you were able to find value in getting to know your fellow community members, as well as meet new friends and hopefully possible business connections. So please feel free to exchange your contact information at the end of the event, or put it in the chat box that we have out here. And if you need to connect with someone specifically, please reach out to us. This is what we do here at the Chamber, is we connect business owners as well as community members here. And so now I think we'd like to turn it over to the third portion of our event. I think Ms. Yoli Moy is going to introduce our keynote speakers tonight.
Okay, thank you so much, Dominique. Okay, we have Colonel Nonie Cabana, a U.S. Air Force retired. He's an author, academician, and military strategist. He's a holder of 3 master's degrees, one of which came from the Naval War College, Newport, Rhode Island. He is a full adjunct professor for Webster University, San Antonio, faculty staff for Texas A&M San Antonio, and Palo Alto College. He is one of the catalysts for the passage of Public Law 114-265, World War II Filipino and American veterans eligible for the U.S. Congressional Gold Medal Award. Our next speaker in his panel is Tomas Badi Gomez III. He is a retired Philippine business and government executive. He was a former press secretary and member of the cabinet under President Corazon Aquino, 1990 to 1992. And he's formerly a consul general to Hawaii, Republic of the Philippines, 1986 to 1990. Our third speaker in the 3 panel is Dr. Nelson Tuazon. He is the Vice President and Associate Chief Nursing Officer, University Health System, San Antonio. He is the author of the Philippine Nurses Association of America, A Tapestry, that synthesized evidence on nurses, on acculturation, legislation, and regulations affecting immigrants of foreign educated nurses into the U.S. workforce. In 2019, he founded the San Antonio Nursing Consortium, an alliance of 14 nursing associations. By the way, Colonel Nonie Cabana and Dr. Nelson Tuazon are members of the Board of Directors of PACC CTR. Ladies and gentlemen, our featured speakers for tonight. Colonel. Colonel Nonie.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Mayor and distinguished guests. Before I proceed, I'd just like to, there was a person attending our meeting, I think Dr. Pinky. She is the president of the Filipino-American National Historical Society, founder of espousing this Filipino-American Heritage Month. So welcome, Dr. Pinky, and as well as Miss Cecilia Garland. She is the founder and executive director for Bataan Legacy. In fact, I'm going to give her a few minutes. I'm going to cut down my time and allow Miss Garland to talk about the labor challenges in California. But before I proceed, this panel of 3 members, we have spoken already to Texas A&M like last Monday and Wednesday, and we received very positive comments from the students. The 3 panel member again will talk on October 28th to talk about historical analysis. Tonight, I feel very secure talking to you. First of all, because I'm surrounded by 2 wingmen. One is a press secretary, former press secretary, President Aquino. So Mr. Buddy Gomez will be some fact checks on what I say. And the other gentleman is with a very impressive title of CNO. When I first saw it, like, wow, Chief Naval Operations. But Nelson was click to correct me. He said, no, that's Chief Nursing Officer. Well, nonetheless, I'm still very protected against the pandemic, having Dr. Nelson on my side. So, gentlemen, ladies, I'm gonna start my presentation in a chronological sequence from 1898 to the 21st century. First and foremost, the Spanish-American War of 1898. Spain ceded its long-standing colony of the Philippines to the United States under the Treaty of Paris. Matter of fact, the United States purchased the Philippines for $20 million. 1899 to 1902, we have this Philippine-American War led by General Emilio Aguinaldo, a former same province I am, Caviteño, and he was quickly defeated by the American forces because of its overwhelming force. Just for a cute golden nugget information, if you go to West Point Academy, at the library, you'll still find General Aguinaldo's desk in there. We're planning to bring it back to the Philippines under General Aguinaldo's home. 1901, you've heard of this Balingaga massacre. That's when the Filipinos and the Americans met on the church and murdered, well, killed a lot of Americans and killed some Filipinos. And that created a tremendous hatred between the Americans and the Filipinos, to a fact that General Jacob Smith ordered his troops stationed in the Philippines to kill everybody that is over 10 in Samar. Because of that order that is considered illegal and immoral, he was court-martialed and went to jail. So the message there is the war crimes was then dubbed because of that committed crimes by the US soldiers in the Philippines. And also, during the time, the US 9th Infantry Regiment took those 3 bells back to America. One was eventually put on Camp Harvey in Korea, South Korea, and 2 were put on F.E. Warren Air Force Base, Wyoming. They were all returned in 2018 under the auspices of religious, because if you use government to government, the American soldiers will always say we put blood into that bill, so therefore we will keep it to the to our utmost. However, things have changed in the 21st century. Cultures have shifted. People now understand better, and so they return it to the church in Samar. Also, just to let you know, during that, there was this thing called, you probably heard if you're from Bisaya, they have this thing called in 1902, Jorementados, Moros suicide killing Christians. Be they Filipinos, Spaniards, Americans, Japanese, they do not like Christians. These Jorementados are so strong and fierce that if you use bayonet, they will still coming and hurt you. In fact, when the US soldiers used 38 pistols, it took dozens of bullets to bring them down. Hence, the .45 caliber was invented for that purpose. I don't know if you ever heard, because a lot of people like .45 caliber. That was designed primarily to thwart those Ottoman titles. December 8, 1942, Japan attacked the Philippines right after Pearl Harbor. During that time in December, FDR, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, proclaimed that Filipinos who serve in the U.S. Armed Forces will receive full benefits as a veterans. Stay tuned as I go along, I'll explain that to you. In 1942, on April 9, 1942, some 76,000 Filipinos and Americans surrendered to Japanese troops in Bataan, located in the Philippine island of Luzon. While these people were suffering in Bataan, this Frank Hewlett, a famous author, come out with this famous quote, and I quote, "We're the battling bastards of Bataan. No mama, no papa, no Uncle Sam. No aunties, no uncles, no cousins, no nieces. No pills, no planes, no artillery pieces, and nobody gives a damn." End of quote. As you know, the U.S. strategy during World War II is free Europe, then followed by Asia. Here's another aha moment for you folks. I wish Sheriff Salazar is still around, but here's my questions for those people that have Mexican descent. How many of you know that Mexican Air Force helped liberate the Philippines during World War II? Raise your hand. Did the Mexican Air Force help liberate the Philippines? Okay, so here's the answer, class, or not class, but gentlemen, ladies. The 201st Fighter Squadron, in Spanish, Escuadrón Aéreo de Pelea 201, was a Mexican fighter squadron, part of the Mexican Expeditionary Air Force. They're also known as the Aztec Eagles, or sometimes they are called Águilas Aztecas. The squadron was attached to the 58th Fighter Group of the United States Army Air Forces during the liberations of the Philippines. They flew P-47 aircraft. So there it is, something that I really learned it about several years ago. 1945, well, unquestionably, this fighter squadron, 201 Fighter Squadron, also qualified under the Public Law 11465 for the U.S. Congressional Gold Medal. So if you know somebody in Mexico that has a next of kin tied to the 201st Fighter Squadron, please let me know. 1945, when the Philippines was liberated, Manila suffered the most devastating attack from the Japanese in Asia, comparable to Poland in Europe. (1946), here's the one that somewhat made a lot of Filipinos upset. When in 1946, signed by President Truman, this thing called the Rescission Act of 1946, essentially voided what FDR promised the Filipinos in December 1941, removing all the benefits from the Filipinos. Now, in fairness, a lot of those Filipinos who serve on the Philippine Scouts were allowed to serve in the U.S. Army and retired. So I just want to put that in perspective. Here's another one that I know sometimes Meyer, our honorable Mayor, use. Do you know that a lot of the Americans were buried in the Philippines? A total of 17,184 were buried in there. And not only that, the Manila American Cemetery, just to give you a perspective, is as big as the Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery, about roughly 153 acres. And Fort Sam Houston Cemetery is 154.7. 2009, Filipino Veterans Equity Compensations was passed and signed by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 on February 17, 2009. Essentially, those eligibles living veterans living in America are given $15,000. And those people living in the Philippines receive $9,000. 2016, another key thing that has been passed. This is called Filipino Veterans of World War II Well, the act was passed in 2016, signed by President Obama. But the last one that I want to share with you before I share it to Ms. Cecilia Garland is they have this thing called World War II Veterans Parole Policy, whereby those dependents of our World War veterans qualify to come to America regardless of age. So that was also passed in 2016. So in a nutshell, I want to just pass it quickly to Ms. Garland and to talk about labor. Ms. Garland, Cecilia?
So Noni, did you want me to talk about the war or about the labor union?
Just the labor now because of limited time. Probably have about
okay.
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay. Well, as you know, in California, before the war, there was an organization called FALA, the Filipino Agricultural Laborers Association, which was founded by Johnny Dionisio in 1939. So before the war, there were a lot of manongs. Actually, the first Filipinos who worked in the farms in Hawaii arrived in 1906. So in 1939, there was still a huge contingency of manongs or farm workers, but that disbanded because during the war, a lot of the farm workers joined the 1st and 2nd Filipino regiments. And then moving fast forward, in 1959, AFL-CIO, which merged in 1952, they created what was called the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, which was AWOC. And out of that group, Rudy Delvo, Larry Itleong, and Benjamin Gaines were employees of the AFL-CIO. And they were the ones who actually organized the farm workers in California, in Central Valley, California. And then in 1962, they banded the farm workers. And at that time, there were few farm workers of Filipino descent because the manongs were already old. So there were more Mexican farm workers at that time. So in 1965, there was a grape strike in Coachella, and that was settled right away on May 14, 1965. But then the grape farmers, the grape farm owners in like Central Valley, the rest of Central Valley, did not want to sign the agreement. So AWOC organized a strike of the Filipino workers, but they knew that they will not be successful until the Mexicans joined them, because majority of the farm workers at that time were of Mexican descent or Mexicans. So he was able to convince Chavez, Cesar Chavez, who founded the National Farm Workers Association in 1962. By the way, that organization at that point was still not a union. And so NFWA, National Farm Workers, joined AWOC, and out of this came the United Farmers Workers Organizing Committee of AFL-CIO. So AFL-CIO was the one that organized the United Farm Workers of America. And by 1972, by the way, the strike was settled in 1970, 5 years later. And in 1972, United Farm Workers of America was created by AFL-CIO.
Have the mayor come. There are questions for him.
AFL-CIO, and Cesar Chavez, because of the membership, became the head of AFL-CIO. Larry Itleong actually...
Cecilia, ma'am, may I interrupt you? I guess there's some questions for the mayor.
Yes.
If you could please allow the questions to be
answered.
Yes,
please.
Resume. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Ms. Dominique.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Cecilia.
Oh, no worries.
I think there are some questions for our mayor, and I know he's been answering them on the chat, but if somebody could raise their hand on Zoom and go ahead and
I'm sorry, Cecilia.
No worries, Mayor.
The next happy hour in person, I'll buy you a drink. I promise. I'm very sorry about that.
I'll take your rain check.
Very sorry.
Does anybody can somebody raise their hands on here, and if they have any questions for the mayor? I can go ahead and unmute you. Okay, Mr. Kin.
Hi, thank you, Dominic. So Mayor, I think you and I have been chatting back and forth. So again, sorry, Cecilia. But
No,
again,
no worries.
I'm just trying to understand, Mayor. So I think many of us are very supportive of the pre-K program. I mean, we look at the results. You know, we were getting results. But I think many of us are looking at this and going, and I think you answered it, but maybe you can share that answer with everybody else.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, the problem is the state is not doing what they need to do to fund these programs, because, you know, we're asking, gee, if this is an educational program, why shouldn't the school districts be doing this? Why does the city have to do this? And why does the city have to create another infrastructure and bureaucracy and pay for those people instead of letting the school districts do it? So if you can share your answer, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. And there's so many layers of challenge with that particular question. Well, first, the state has never really adequately funded early childhood education below kindergarten, and has begun to do so through school districts. And so school districts have had pre-K half day in select school districts, but we have 17 different school districts in the city of San Antonio. So depending on the level of property wealth in the area, different programs exist. And so we are far from seeing a situation where every child has access to full day pre-K. And the reason why full day is important is that so many of the families that are affected are working families, some of them working 2 and 3 jobs between, you know, 1 or 2 parents. And so the opportunity for a child to go to pre-K at all depends on whether or not they can stay there while their parents are at school, getting instruction and being prepared. So pre-K for SA started 8 years ago with the vote of the people to really essentially bring in full day pre-K for the first time ever in our public schools. We work through school districts to provide that, as well as our 4 centers. The state has recently, Diego Bernal actually championed a bill to increase funding for pre-K as well as the rest of the education pipeline. But even that funding did not bring full day pre-K to all of our districts. The challenge where we are now is that we aren't at the point where we have full day pre-K. So this pre-K for SA program helps to fill in those gaps. But we're also anticipating that the legislature is going to cut back education again this session, which is starting in January, which would be disastrous in my opinion. They're doing that because pre-K is always the first thing. Education is always the first thing to be cut because it's such a giant budget. But also, you know, we weren't there to begin with. So pre-K for SA is on the ballot as Proposition A, which will be a renewal, an 8-year renewal of the program that was approved back in 2012. None of the propositions, again, will raise your taxes. It's all existing allocations that would continue. The cost per average household for an entire year that you're already paying that would be renewed is $8.62 per year. That's what that 1/8 cent sales tax means for the average family, the average household. But again, that's the amount of money that you're already paying.
All right, thank you for that, Mayor. I think the next question on the floor is Mr. Gus Mercado, Executive Director at PACC Texas. Tito Gus, you have the floor.
Yes, hi, Mr. Meyer. Good afternoon.
Hi, Gus. Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you again. As you may know, I'm the state chair of one of the parties. Okay, I will not mention the party because the host of this meeting is supposed to be non-partisan.
Sure.
And by the way, Consolata is here. She's the founder of the Filipino-American Chamber of Commerce, Texas. My question has to do with our phone banking, because we have an army of phone bankers, not only from Texas but from big states that are not swing states, and we were able to talk to thousands of films in the state. Do you have any issues? Because we've been following you on CNN during the height of the pandemic, and you mentioned, and we sympathize with the fact that San Antonio was one of the hardest hit cities. Your phone bank was incredible. Very dramatic. portrayal of the situation. You have any issues or candidates that you would like for us to include in our phone banking efforts?
Well, as a nonpartisan organization, that limits the candidates, I would imagine. But I would be thrilled, Gus, if the chamber agreed and endorsed Proposition B, but certainly Proposition A as well. If you would consider getting the word out for that, we can provide all the information that you need, assuming that that's something that you support. We can provide the information, but we certainly would love to have that help on your phone bank.
Certainly. Can we get from your office maybe a list of zip codes? Because our phone bank is so specialized, you can sort by zip codes.
Yeah, how about if someone can get me if someone can get me your contact information, I'll put you in touch with our campaign manager, and they can get all the information you need, messaging, scripts, and all the voter data that we're targeting.
Okay, and by
Gus,
we're still the chamber is still nonpartisan, but I think even our Republican friends are supporting Gina Ortiz Jones. So yeah.
As am I, yeah.
No problem there. Thank you, Dominique.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gus.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think we have one more on the floor. Miss Myra has a question for the mayor. Miss Meyer, please unmute. There you go.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Mayor Ron. It's a pleasure to be in the same event with you. I know I've seen you around, and I live here in San Antonio, and I just also wanted to say hi to Tito Gus, because I just took on the San Antonio co-chair of the organization that Tito Gus belongs to. So maybe I could help with the communication
great.
between San Antonio as a San Antonio co-chair. But I also, I just want to, express my appreciation for you coming out with your identity, because it certainly boosts the way that we all perceive ourselves in relation to others in San Antonio, and which is also the reason why, in following the footsteps of Tito Gus, I won't say the political party platform, although I think I mentioned it in the chat already, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm starting a chapter of an Asian American, quote unquote, party platform of Texas. And I believe it's the first time. And I think anytime that we represent ourselves and step forward, where we're typically invisible, because I did know, Mayor Ron, of your Filipino background until recently. But when you came out and expressed that, it made a difference. Like it feels like we can connect more, and which is also the reason why I'm starting that Asian American chapter here in San Antonio, because I feel like there's a general invisibility when it comes to responding to certain things that affect our health or our job security, education, and other opportunities just to have a good quality of life. And so I just want to encourage everyone to keep stepping forward when they feel invisible. And I applaud Mayor Ron's step in doing that himself. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Myra. And I just want to, I actually was shocked when I found out that I was the only of the 50 large cities. But I do want to thank our Filipino associations, of which there are many, for allowing me that. We've been, hanging out for a long, long time, even back when I was a District 8 city councilman, and you've always treated me like family. And thank you for that. You've been my strong base of support, and I won't ever forget that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to have to run to another meeting. I'm sorry. It's Cecilia. I owe you one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. We appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can go back to Colonel Noni Cabana.
Miss Cecilia, please take over.
Oh, where was I?
You're now afforded another 3 minutes. I'm just kidding.
Oh, so as you all know, Larry Itleong is a leading or was a leading Filipino labor organizer. Well, I shouldn't be, because this is in California, but it affected the entire country. So he was actually, to end my presentation, he was one of those who founded the United Farm Workers of America. And actually, when the strike was settled, his signature, he was the first signature, followed by Cesar Chavez. But because of the numbers of workers, the farm workers, there was an overwhelming number of Mexican farm workers. That's when Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta actually became the dominant figures in the United Farm Workers of America. But it was the Filipinos who actually started the farm workers movement.
Thank you, Ms. Cecilia. Wonderful. That's very informative information to educate our Filipino Americans. This time, I'd like to introduce Buddy Gomez, a very good writer. If you wanna see a walking Bible about Filipino History Month, he's the man. Mr. Buddy, the floor is yours, please.
Mr. Gomez, are you online?
Unmute. He's online. Go ahead and unmute him. Dominic, go ahead and unmute him. Override him.
I'm not sure where he. Can you raise your hand, Mr. Gomez? Mr. Gomez, can you raise your hand?
Here I am.
Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Noni. Actually, Noni requested me to dwell upon a couple of things. The observance that we are exercising tonight, the Filipino-American History Month. The words heritage and history have been interchangeably used. So the Filipino-American National Historical Society, of which I am a life member, has requested that there will be a clarification. It is Filipino-American History Month, not heritage. History, of course, involves events, experiences of people, lives of people, and their impact, their experience and their impact upon society. Heritage talks about culture. Now, Filipino-American History Month does not dwell on Philippine history. Its main concentration is the history of the Filipino diaspora in the United States of America. Let's be sure about that. And of course, all the relationships between Philippines and the United States that falls from the fact that we have a distinct and prominent Filipino diaspora active in American society. Having said that, the other point that was brought up during the discussions with the Texas A&M historical sessions with Colonel Cabana and Dr. Francis Galang, that's his name. It was proposed that perhaps it is time that more Philippine content in the study of US history. In other words, if I may say in Tagalog, medyo agrabyado ata tayo. Kapos na kapos ang kaalaman ng mga Amerikano tungkol sa Filipino. Now, what we're proposing is maybe over the years, because this will take a long time. For instance, in the case of Cecilia, it took them years for California to be able to include enough time and enough pages in the study of history of the United States that includes the Philippines. Now, what justification do we have for saying that isali naman ninyo kami? you know, this is very human. I am sure each and everyone among us would like to know, sino ba ang nagmamahal sa akin? Sino ba ang admirer ko? Who adores me? You know, a couple of years ago, there was a global attitudinal research conducted by Pew. This is something to be proud about, especially for us who belong to the Filipino diaspora in the United States. Ang lumabas dun sa survey na yon, Filipinos have a more positive attitude towards America, towards American history, and towards American presidents more than Americans themselves. Now that's really flattering, wouldn't it be, for the Americans? Those are one of the justifications that we're saying. Anyway, I will try to cut my participation very briefly so that other questions could be asked from other guys. But, you know, I am not inhibited by partisanship in the current politics that's happening. I already voted by mail. As a matter of fact, I voted for all the propositions that Mayor Nirenberg had said something. But beyond that, since we are celebrating the Filipino diaspora in the United States, the Filipino-American History Month, please allow me to read a message that came from one of the presidential candidates in this election. He found time and the opportunity to be able to participate in what we're doing, except that, of course, we know he cannot be with us because he's very busy. And here is a message from Joe Biden. Let me read it for you. Whether fighting in our armed forces or fighting to advance social justice across the United States, Filipino-Americans have enriched and strengthened every aspect of our country. What was at the back of the mind of Joe Biden? He was not only thinking of Bataan, Corregidor, World War II, the USAFE. He was also thinking of the example that Cecilia just gave us, the labor movement. I will dare say this, and mark my words. Without Larry Itliong, and without Philip de Vera, and without the 1965 grape strike in California, there would be no Cesar Chavez. But there are two reasons why Cesar Chavez is there. As explained by Cecilia, by reason of numbers, talaga naman napakarami ng laborers, members ng asosasyon na galing sa Mexico. We salute them for that. But the other reason also is that ang Filipino is not really very assertive. Tudo pasa lang, sali lang ang sali, or you know, when it comes to be very difficult, take it in the chin. But that's not anymore, because right now we're celebrating Filipino-American History Month in the United States, and it is sanctioned by Congress. So, having said that, I think we should continue what we're doing now. Activism. Activism in American life. And I think exciting times are coming after January 20. Okay, well, I give back the floor to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy. Well done speech, my friend. Very inspiring. We always save the last for best. This time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tuason to give us some impressive statistics of how the Filipino nurses fighters are fighting this pandemic, along with some great history about our Filipino-American traits. Dr. Tuason, sir, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Colonel Nonie. And always impressive from our friend, historian. So the task that I was given tonight is to share some historical background about the medical professions and the impact of physicians really and nurses. But I will be remiss if I did not mention that there are also medical technologists, laboratory personnel, physical therapists, and everyone else that have been at the front line with this COVID-19. And we also have Filipino teachers that have come to the U.S. And they truly are a part of the front line as well. So let me start with about 2 minutes of history, because I really want to focus on what's going on at the moment. So as the two previous speakers have mentioned, the history of the Philippines and the Spaniards go back even before the galleon trade. Filipinos have been coming to the United States. In fact, they came to Hawaii, where the sugar plantations were or still are, and they had gone to California. Now, during these galleon trades, many of these Filipinos have actually jumped ship. And for those of us that have been to Louisiana, the first Filipino settlements were actually in Louisiana. When the US paid Spain $20 million to occupy the Philippines, we became a source of not free, but cheap labor for the US. That's why we have been migrating to the United States. Now, where it changed was as a result of the war, World War II, the US had sent many of its military personnel who are physicians and nurses to war. So they had a shortage of medical personnel. So that opened the door for physicians and nurses to come to the US. Because the Philippines was under the colonization of the US, we actually had a lot of Filipinos migrate. But in 1934, the Tidings-McDuffie Act reduced the immigration to about 50 a year. So there were very few that were able to come. It was limited to those who were married to the soldiers that had come to the US, to the Philippines, that had come back to the United States. And those that have, if you recall, there was what we call the exchange visitors program, where Filipinos or other nurses from other countries were able to come to the United States. And at that time, they were supposed to only stay in the US and come back to the Philippines or return to the Philippines, many of whom married Americans, so they were able to stay in the United States. They were also able to go to school, and that allowed them to stay as well in the US. And some of them have left and had gone to different countries. So since then, the Philippines has become actually the #1 exporter of nurses. By 1967, the Philippines exported more nurses than any other professionals from the Philippines. So the latest census from 2014 to 2018 indicate that the Filipinos, 43% of us are in California. So close to a half of us are in California. And that's not surprising, because when the Filipinos settled as agriculture workers was in California, and it had stayed on at that time. The next one followed by Hawaii, but Hawaii, only 6% of Filipinos are in Hawaii. The 18% of the rest of the biggest numbers are in Texas, Illinois, New York, and Nevada. I didn't think about Nevada, but Nevada actually has a lot of Filipinos as well. So I guess because it's closer to California. In terms of states, California still has the most, and there are about 1.6 million Filipinos in California, followed by 367,000 in Hawaii, and only about less than 200,000 are in Texas, although that is in 2018. So because, you hear that a lot of Filipinos also migrate to Texas now because of a lot of reasons. So there might be more Filipinos in Texas. So what I'd like to do instead is 1 more minute of history. If you recall, when the Spaniards were in the Philippines, they established the University of Santo Tomas. So it's the first Philippine university that they had established. But the records indicated that the Filipino women were not encouraged to go to school. They were at home, they were taking care of the sick. In the history, it says that they actually were midwives, the helots that we know before they became nurses. So they were helping delivering babies and so on and so forth. So that was the closest history to the nursing profession. And of course, for our Filipino-American friends who may not be familiar with it, the reason that Filipino nurses are attracted to the US is because we're educated in English and we use textbooks that are Western. So when you come to the US, there is easy assimilation and so on and so forth. And the values of Filipinos of godliness, family, community, and friends is actually very fitting to the profession of healthcare because we take care of the sick, the elderly, and the vulnerable population. So as Ms. Gina Ortiz has alluded earlier, there's only 4% of all nurses in the US are Filipinos. There's only about 150,000 of us. And yet 35% of those that have been affected and actually passed because of COVID are Filipinos because we are at the front line. So with that, I actually want to call on Dr. Danet Bloom to share with us what they have been doing in terms of screening for COVID. Dr. Bloom, if you can, please unmute yourself and share with us for a minute or so what your group is doing.
Dr. Nelson, I think there was a question on the floor.
Go ahead.
Real quick. Yeah, I think for Tito Buddy, there was a question by Tito Gus Mercado. Tito Gus, you have the floor.
Okay, I'll be quick. Consul Buddy Gomez, I have a concern that I would like for you to address. As you know, you and I were, revolutionaries and exiled during martial law. There is a big concern that just like the U.S. historians who have pretty much expunged any mention of the genocide during the turn of the century against Filipinos in the Philippines. In the Philippines, I understand that the history books are also being revised to downplay and eventually take out any mention of the infamous martial law regime. So what can we do to protest that? I have a feeling that when the new administration, U.S. administration comes in, we have a better chance of doing that. What do you think?
Tito Buddy, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
Guys, we're all worried about that. Let me just tell you what happened quite a while ago. The
Mute.
Oh,
Mute.
Tito Buddy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah, it keeps on. The truth will out. The fact is, we're beating them. The important thing is tuloy-tuloy lahat ng ginagawa natin, ituloy lang natin. Because hindi mangingibabaw ang kasinungalingan eh. Pinagtatawanan na nga. But, Imelda and Bongbong and Aimee, they have a lot of money to spend. They're spending money for this revisionist history and all that. Truth will out. I think what we ought to do is we just, President Clinton has a very nice quotation, the vigilance of memory. All we have to do is, kung ano yung kasaysayan, kung ano yung naranasan natin, kung yun ang alam natin, pagpatuloy natin. Anyway, while we are here, I wonder if I may just take advantage of just a little bit of revision. It is very common in the history books and all that, written by nationalists, egoists, I might call them. The word, the Philippines was purchased by the United States for $20 million. It is true that $20 million changed hands. But it was not because the United States paid for each and every Filipino at the turn of the last century during the Treaty of Paris for $20 million. The truth of the matter, and this has to be corrected eventually. Pero alam mo naman, ang nationalistic rhetoric kuminsan ay talagang matigas eh. The truth behind the $20 million really is reimbursement for what Spain had spent in terms of physical improvements, roads, bridges, telegraph, train, and things like those. That is the real background. So as much as possible, let's try to downplay that ibinenta tayo. That is not true. We were not purchased. We were colonized. Now, there will be many other discussions about colonizations, expansion, imperialism, but that's for another day. Anyway, I hope I've answered your question, guys.
Well, yeah. What about the U.S. history books? You know, are we okay with the fact that the historians here in the United States are because they're ashamed of that dark chapter in their history that once upon a time they were guilty of genocide against the Filipinos? I'm glad that I believe Nonie mentioned the Balangiga massacre.
You know, even Balangiga massacre, the first time that it happened, the number of victims were inflated. There is a lot of revision, not revision, but correction, especially in terms of numbers. I do not want to sound too much of being pro-American, but the fact is, until America came, colonization all over the world over the centuries has been harsh, has been predatory, has been selfish. I think another thing that the reason why, I'm glad this was brought because it came to my mind, one of the reasons why the Philippines most probably should occupy a little more content in US history is because it is the pride of America to be able to say American exceptionalism. The Philippines is an exception. Magaling talaga. Totoo yun eh. As a matter of fact, if I am looking for exhibit 1 of American exceptionalism, I will point to the Philippines. Because the Philippines is the very first and the only colony of the United States at a time when it was not because of sheer conquest, it was not because of predatory aims. First of all, of course, America was growing. They wanted to open up new markets. That is a fact. But on the other hand, there was a moral, a very profound moral aspect in American colonization. Umahaba ng konti ito, but dadagdagan ko lang na isa. You know, many of you will remember the American Peace Corps. Kennedy's Peace Corps was patterned after what the United States government, under manifest destiny, under benevolent assimilation, when the United States called for American volunteers, young men and women who wanted to teach, were all sent to the Philippines to start the public school system. No other colonial power has ever done that. So, you know, in terms of numbers, kung gaano kadaming namatay, we have to require refinements in many of these things. Over time, I'm sure this will be corrected, and I guess Philippine participation in upgrading or updating American history would help. But believe you me, malayong lugar pa yan. It's a very difficult task, and it might take many, many years for us to increase the amount of time being spent in history classrooms dealing with the Philippines. But the point that we have to be proud of is that just as Spain is part of the American story, the Philippines is an integral part of the American story. And that's the reason why we're here. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tito Buddy. Thank you so much for that.
Walang
And now we go back to Dr. Bloom. And after that, we will do one more breakout room. Dr. Bloom, you have the floor.
Yes. What was the question? I'm kidding. So I think Dr. Twazan, thank you, Kuya Nelson, invited me to speak about our role for COVID. I think a lot of our frontliners are, of course, nurses who were essential workers for COVID. The UT Health Science Center, our endeavor was actually to not only provide those work in order to provide for care for those for COVID patients, but also to improve treatment strategies as well as testing strategies for COVID. And the statistics that was shared by Gina Ortiz earlier was very true for us, and personally among our network of Philippine Nurses Association of America, where Filipino nurses consist 3% of the nursing workforce of the US. We have 31% of those nurses that died were actually Filipinos. And that's only basic statistics. What about those families of those nurses who were infected? And that is a lot. It is a logarithmic increase. And we have found within our circles, our networks, those individuals who were affected by COVID. But there were also issues that were raised tonight with regards to at the Gus, Kuya Gus and Kuya Buddy mentioned about, the voice of the Filipino-Americans, and Mia, was it Mia? Myra also mentioned about us being our voices heard. So I am now being funded by the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute to give voice and build capacity and give voice to Filipino Americans in terms of their healthcare priorities. And that stems from the fact and my observation, personal experience of having sat on a lot of these boards, of diverse boards where statistics are laid out, and there's always white, there's always Black or African American, there's always Hispanic and others. So Asians are slot in under others, like we do not count. Whatever we say, we don't get sick, we don't have health issues, and so on and so forth. So I actually shifted my program of science from more mental health aspect to actually empowering Filipino Americans into giving their voice and also producing research that is relevant for Filipino Americans. So it's not the time now to be quiet and just be satisfied. We are in 5 states. The funding is for 5 states: California, Hawaii, Texas, New York, and New Jersey. And I have heard from community members, what would encourage you to be part of research? And they would say, "Oh, we Filipinos are not actually interested in research. We just leave it to others, or just don't mind about it unless it involves the community and community members encourage us." But there is a lot to be said when there is research, so people would know what are important for a community, what can we do, what can the policy, what can research institutions do, what interventions need to be done, which fits for Filipinos, by Filipinos, hopefully, and for Filipinos. So that is my pulpit wherever I say, we need to be more engaged for what our agenda in terms of research, healthcare, and so on and so forth, because it's the time. And I'm really encouraged by what the mayor had said, and Tito Badi had mentioned about, there seems to be a movement that we'll be encouraged to be able to speak out and be represented at a higher level. And I hope this does not consist as promises for election promises, but be really realized past the election time, that Filipino Americans and Asians are represented in policy making, in funding of research, in all other aspects of the American life. I hope I've addressed your question, Kuya Nelson.
Yes, very much so. That is the relevant history right now, because right now we are making history for the future. So, Dominic, I know if I can as well, I want to introduce Golda Manalili, who is the president of the Philippine Nurses Association of San Antonio.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Golda Manalili, and I've introduced myself earlier to those who have not heard. I'm the current president of the Philippine Nurses Association of San Antonio.
Great. And last, but not certainly not the least, our board member for PACC as well, who is just elected or not appointed as a member of the task force on diversity, our very own Miss Elsie Cortez. Elsie?
Hi, this is Elsie Cortez. I am representing the post-acute environment in healthcare, which is home health and hospice. So in post-acute settings with the COVID-19 crisis, we are very aware of making sure screening is done within the healthcare workers and also for our clients that we see in the home care setting. And like Dr. Nelson said, I was appointed in a task force with a diversity and inclusions task force. So the mission for this newly created, because I'm very active with the Texas Association for Home Care and Hospice in the state of Texas. So being one of the post-acute leader in San Antonio with the home care and hospice, that I got appointed to this diversity and inclusion leadership committee. Representing everybody that is in the home health and hospice care.
Thank you, everyone. It's always good to be within the circle of healthcare providers. So thank you for the opportunity for us to share. Dominique, I turn it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. So it looks like we're at 7:37 tonight, and we have one more breakout session available, and we will take about 30 seconds to a minute to introduce ourselves to our new group. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hello. All right. It looks like it's just you and me, Miss Ethel, and David is out in his restaurant serving his clients, his patrons. David, are you there? There you are. You got a few minutes, David, to talk about Sumo and your restaurant and how you've been doing with COVID and how you've been helping the community? Unmute yourself, please.
Hey, Dominique.
Yeah, you got a few seconds?
Yeah, I got a few seconds.
Perfect. So this is being recorded, and when we post it, you can talk about your restaurant and how you've been faring during the COVID crisis. And I think we also have Ms. Mila Schul on here. So we have 30 seconds to a minute to talk about our businesses.
Excellent. Who's first?
You can go first. You can go first, yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm David Sumo. Let me see if I can make this bigger. I'm sorry. I don't know why I can't make it bigger.
How about this? How's that?
Nope, still a small screen, but that's okay. Hi, everyone. I'm David Sumo. I just really appreciate y'all having me on today. It's really been interesting in what you've talked about, what Tazan and Colonel have said. It's amazing. And hearing from the sheriff and the mayor. So I'm a proud owner of Sumo Japanese Steakhouse. We won #1 steakhouse in 2019, 2020 from the San Antonio Express News. And we've had challenges, we've had bumps on the road, but I'm here standing, and we're strong, we're survivors, just like many of our other colleagues, restaurants out there. And I got to say that we're fortunate. We are very fortunate. We saw us go down. We saw, us almost crash and burn. But you know what? We stuck it through, and my staff stuck it through, and it's amazing. I will say it's hard for us to find employees, especially strong, good employees nowadays. That's been really tough. And I think it's a huge economy that I think the whole economy is having problems in the workforce. So, yeah, I thank y'all very much for having me on. I support this group. I've been a member of it for 3 years, and I'm still strongly involved if I can. And then once I have a little bit more free time, hopefully I can work a little bit more with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David.
You're
And
very
one
welcome.
thing I wanted to point out is David and I were founding members of the San Antonio, which is still going strong. And so please go out to David's restaurant, and it's off of I-10 in Callahan, is it? And support his business, please.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and one more thing, his wife is also Filipina, so I wanted to point that out. And so I don't see Rose on here, but please tell her, give her our regards, and your beautiful daughter.
Thank you very much. I will. Same to your family. Thank y'all, guys. I'm going to have to take off. But I really appreciate everything that you have done and what you are still doing. So thank you so much.
David.
You're welcome.
So much.
Thank you.
Tita Mila, I think you are next. Unmute, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. It is your
Okay.
turn.
I'm not going to talk about my business. I decided to join in here because I am very, very passionate about the Philippine History Month.
Yes.
Now, I am not aware that it is now called Filipino-American History Month. And I really would like to stay focused on Philippine history. I am very, very passionate about it. I have lived in South Vietnam, Tehran, Iran, Korea, of course, the Philippines. And in all these places, I have came across a lot of Filipinos who know nothing about our history. And I find that extremely frustrating, from arts, culture, food, you name it. When I was in South Korea, we organized, through the help of the Philippine Tourism, Department of Tourism, under the secretary then was Dick Gordon, the Philippine Airlines, and the hotels. And we gathered some of these moms and Filipinos and brought them to the Philippines and showed them what the Philippines is all about. We brought them to Bataan, to UST, University of Santo Tomas, Fort Bonifacio, and showed them. And then how we evolved as a country, from our food to our fashion, showcasing the evolution of our costumes. That's what I was expecting. We went to Sydney, Australia to showcase our livelihood program, some of our handicrafts, and brought buyers. And that is something I would like to do. I would like to introduce to the world that the Philippines is not just pancit and lumpia and adobo, that there is more substance to it. How our jeepneys came to evolve. Where did it come from? How we all got to this. And that's what I am really, really very passionate about. And what I want to ask is, after COVID, what can we do to introduce our culture? When we were new here, we introduced our Santa Cruzan. We got a permit from the city of San Antonio to do a procession and what Santa Cruzan is all about. Because very few of our young generation don't know nothing about our culture, our traditions, because most of the time their parents know nothing about it. And that's the one that frustrates me. That's the one where I really would like to be involved in. Not politics, but introducing our arts, culture, traditions.
Right. I completely agree with that, Tita Mila, and I think that it's been lost. You know,
It is lost. I don't want to talk about politics, although I really would like to see our Filipinos being involved, our countrymen being involved in the political process.
Yes.
I totally agree with that. But where I am really very passionate about is bringing in our young generation and let them know how we evolved, because most of the time they don't know. And how do we go about it? When I took these kids from Korea to the Philippines, we brought them to Malacanang Palace. We brought them to the Department of Tourism. We brought them to the University of Santo Tomas, which is the oldest institution in the country. We showed them pictures, movies of the history of the Philippines, because that's the only way you can really get the attention of this young generation. And that's the project I really would like to be very much involved in.
You know, I hope, you know, I really mirror your passion there, Tita Mila, because, you know, being, I'm going to say it, I'm 36 years old, and my cohorts are not as familiar with their history, and in fact, are, you know, unknowingly ignorant about where their parents came from and the struggles and, you know, heritage wise. Yeah. So I think that's definitely something that we could focus on, you know, in the chamber, even because you will see also that the idea of a chamber, you know, for the younger ones, it doesn't seem to be attractive. You will see that.
I was very frustrated at the beginning of this Zoom meeting. I almost backed out, because what I was expecting is talk about the history. How do we get our young generation educated and involved in the process?
Yes.
That's what I would like to see. I would like to be able to showcase everything about our country. This is why in my restaurant, what you see are works of some of our painters, our cultures. That's what I want to showcase. That's what I want. I want our young generation to be proud of where they came from, their cultures. They may be American citizens, so this way they would be able to share it with the rest of their.
Absolutely, and I think that could be a campaign that we could do for next year, or, you know, a project even, even with the JCs.
After the COVID.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I was hoping. Because if we could have Black History Month and they will show everything that's all about Afro-American, why can't we do the same thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. We could definitely look into that and put that as a project for next year, especially when everything's calmed down and it's a lot safer.
Yes.
But yes, ma'am. I agree with you 100% on that.
From fashion to culinaries to our culture, our arts, everything, because our country is so rich in traditions. Our country is so rich in culture, arts, and all this.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
30 seconds. We have 30
Mila.
Thank you, Tita Mila. Thank you. Let's talk some more about that for next year.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We'll talk
Mila,
more.
thank you. Hello, Mila. How are you? I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
My being a radical is coming out. You have to remember, I'm
That's
a graduate
okay.
of the
That's what we.
University of the Philippines.
I know you pretty well, my
very
friend.
passionate.
Okay, 3
I'm
seconds.
passionate with everything Filipino.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for participating this evening, and hope you found some value in getting to know your community members here. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to our region chair, Ms. Yolanda Moyle. You have the floor.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the breakout rooms. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here tonight. I hope you had a great time in your breakout sessions, getting to know better our friends and gaining new ones. We surely learned more from our speakers tonight regarding our Filipino history and legacy in the American society. I just would like to share with you all the benefits of joining PACC CTR. As a member, you will be associating and working with other successful business persons and professionals committed to strengthening the position of the growing Filipino-American owned businesses in the community. PACC Texas conducts or co-sponsors trade missions to and from the Philippines and other Asian countries as a means of fostering trade and commerce. Entertaining and informative speakers make attendance at each general membership meeting time well spent. It is an opportune time like this to meet and share information with other business persons or professionals and to expand your marketing network. And most of all, the greatest benefit of joining as a business member, you have a free website advertising. As a business member, your business will have the opportunity to be presented in the PACC CTR website and in our Facebook group. Okay, now we're done with, I told earlier, by the way, that we're encouraging everyone, since election is coming up, we're encouraging everyone to go out and vote. Let's exercise our right to vote on November 3rd, 2020. Again, I thank you all for taking the time out from your weekend and joining us celebrate the Filipino-American History Month. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Yoli,
Yes,
if I
yes,
may, for the last minute of our meeting tonight,
yes.
we also
Go ahead.
wanted to start the conversation that all Filipino associations will have either a formal or informal gathering like this so that we can be unified in what we do. I was hoping that Gina Lynn is still on so that she can greet the group as well, because she's our president of the Alamo Asian Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Is Miss Gina Lynn on the call still?
Yes, she is.
Yes, she is. Miss Jenilyn, please unmute.
Yeah, Dr.
If you
Tuazon.
could, yes, if you could give greetings to the group. I represent the Filipino delegation to the chamber.
Yes,
but if I could defer 1 minute of my time to Miss Jenilyn.
Oh,
yes, thank you.
You're very, very gracious. Well, first off, I did say hi earlier on, but I wanted to express my congratulations to PACC CTR on behalf of the Alamo Asian American Chamber of Commerce. As you may know, we are a proud supporter of Philippine Chamber. I happen to be Filipino as well, and so there is a little bit of a leverage as far as support, and two of your board members also sit in my board, both Dr. Nelson Tuazon and also Dr. Melinda Rodriguez. So we are here for Philippine Chamber. Now, we are very feverishly trying to provide resources through Small Business Administration and working with the UTSA COVID Resiliency Program in extending some of the virtual symposiums for our Asian American small businesses in town. We're also working very closely with Ken, with the Alliance, and there's just a few things that I think collectively as an Asian American community, we can really be stronger if all of our voices are heard. There is an initiative right now of trying to get an Asian American and an African American sit in the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation Board. So it is a long uphill battle, but with your support, we also wanted, to make known, and probably we could reach out offline to each of the organizations represented here today, that we do have a voice. We just need to collectively raise our voices together. And Dr. Tuazon is also putting together a COVID resiliency plan on the healthcare side on behalf of Alamo Asian Chamber of Commerce. So we are going to be putting out that information very, very soon. And again, thank you for inviting me. This is really a fantastic event, and I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Janelyn. Thank you so much for attending our forum today. Thank you. So Dominique, we have 6 more minutes, Ms. Dominique.
We sure do. Well, I just want to thank everybody for, taking the time out of this Saturday evening for celebrating, our history here in the United States. I know that, times are a little bit rough politically and economically, but I think when I said earlier, we're here for solidarity. And whatever our political alliances are, I think we can put that aside and at least exercise our right to vote. We're only a few weeks away, and whatever your political affiliation is, please, go out and vote. And that's kind of been our motto this month as well. And please, if join PACC. We're a great group of people here in San Antonio. We promote each other. It is a safe and inclusive group. And we have a website that, if you go on our Facebook page, we're actively posting. And as our region chair mentioned, we, as a business owner, we will put your logo up there. We'll do a lot of marketing for you. And so I just want to end the night with thank you. And hopefully, we, like the mayor said, we will see each other soon and celebrate.
Yes.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Dominique. You awesome.
Bye.
Thank
you. So this is the PACC CTR again. Thank you for having me. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.